Hi, and welcome back to
Inspired the Game. I'm Sean.
And I'm Lola. If you enjoy what you see here, please support our channel by subscribing down below.
And if you've already subscribed, domo arigato gozaimasu.
Today we bring you a review of 100 Torii, as well as their newest expansion, Diverging Paths. So we want to thank Pencil First Games for sending us these review copies, and we are going to start with 100 Torii. We'll do an overview of how it's played and give you our review of that for those who aren't familiar with the game, and then we will go on to the Divergent Paths expansion and talk about that. Now, if you are familiar with the base game already and just want to know about the expansion, you can use the chapters below to navigate yourself there. So go wherever you want. There's lots of stuff. Explore. Have fun.
Follow your own path.
Speaking of following your own path, we are going to start with our overview of 100 Torii. In 100 Torii, you will be placing tiles to create pathways of connecting icons in a Japanese garden. Before each turn, you have the option to enlist helpers to help maximize your points. You will place one of your two tiles that you currently have in your hand within the tableau. On the tile you placed, you will choose one of the icons and find its next closest one along the path. You will score 1 token for completing that path, and you will score additional tokens for each red and blue Torii gate that you pass through. Throughout the game, you will be receiving achievements through the tokens that you accrue, as well as through the helpers that you enlist along the way. At the end of the game, you add up all the points that you have scored, and you see who has won 100 Torii. Now, we first played 100 Torii at our local convention earlier this year with our friends at Covere Studios. We had such a blast. Right away, I fell in love with this game. I want to start with the rulebook because I think rulebooks are important. It really matters to the experience of the game. So right from the beginning, with the rulebook, the front cover, there's nothing on it but a picture of a Torii gate and the beautiful Japanese garden in the background. And what's neat is as you turn that page, you feel like you're going into that garden. Now, the thing about Torii gates, they are meant to divide the mundane and the sacred. So as you're going through them, it's like going into sacred space. And as you're playing this game and you're progressing along your paths, going through the Torii, there's this peacefulness, there's this Zen-like component of playing this game that is just so delightful. It's just so cozy and peaceful to play, which is why I was really excited about playing it and loved it right from the first play.
Yes, and everything about the game feeds right into that experience. And I think I was reading in the rulebook that the illustrator took inspiration from Japanese woodblock prints, and there's even the back of the manual describes a little bit about Japan, a little about the Edo period, a little about the different the landmark tokens and why they are the Inari statues and the Tsukubai water basins and what they meant and everything like that. It's really a lot of fun to learn about those things specifically in relation to the Japanese gardens.
Yeah, and I love it when games do that. I play to have fun and to be entertained, but I also love it when a game can bring in an educational experience and I can learn a little bit about either the world or something within the world at the same time. And this really delivers with that because not only does it give this beautiful, authentic feeling Japanese experience of this garden, but it also has that element of teaching you about it. If you read the rule book and then as you're using all the little token pieces, now you know the context of what they all mean and why they're all there. Now, this is a 1 to 4 player game. It's tile laying, as you can see, it's set collection as well, and it plays for about 45 to 60 minutes. So it makes a fantastic filler game. What's nice too is with the use of the helpers, it actually makes it a great little strategy game. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so actually a strategy tip I have is like always make sure that you use a helper every single turn, because what I love about it is you're getting to use that helper. You're like learning. I don't tell him my strategy tips. But it's So you're getting to use a helper that's going to maximize your scoring points in that turn. So how many tokens that you get to have. But at the same time, you're gaining endgame scoring points. So the first time you take a helper, you get 2 points. You use them again, 4 points. And if you can get to that third use first, you get an extra 3 points. So that's 7 points altogether. So you want to use those as often as you can, and you can only use one a turn. So pretty much I use one almost every single turn on every chance that I get. And it's satisfying taking those scoring tokens, knowing that you've gotten help to go further and maximize your points. And at the same time, you're maximizing your points through maximizing your points.
And it is something else to keep in mind. In earlier games, I would just race to get the 5-point greater tokens, the 10-point greater tokens, because I wanted to get those achievements first. But realizing that those small tokens are also how I'm going to spend for my helpers. So there were many rounds when I wouldn't be able to get a helper, and it explains why. Oh, now I get it. So I did quickly learn that no, you got to kind of keep that economy going and keep those in front of you so that you can make those choices, as opposed to going, I could really use the geisha this turn, except I've only got 1 token. The other thing to keep in mind is with each of those achievements, the character bonuses, the large landmark tiles, having all 6 of the large landmark tiles, it's 1 per player. So in a 4-player game, you'll have 4 of those helper characters, 4 of those large landmark tiles. So it's not like you can get 5 and then 10 and another 5 and 10. It's just a limit of 10 for each player for the large landmark tiles, and that's it.
Yeah, and once you get more than 10 tokens in any one specific icon, you aren't going to get any value on any of the rest. So it's not one of those things where you get end game scoring a certain amount of points for however many you have left over. You don't get any points for those at all, just for your larger scoring tokens, tiles, I guess. Yeah. This game kind of makes me think of Parks, or a game like that. It's got a similar feel to it, like Or Trails. It's got it's got the nature aspect, the nice art, and it's got that peaceful Zen-like experience to it, but it still has a bit of a thinky puzzle, and that's what I really enjoy about it. The icons can be a little small on some of the tiles, so that's something to consider. When we first played this at the convention, it was a big table and it was far away, and I had trouble seeing the tiles. Not the tiles themselves, but the icons on the tile. So it's not so much the icons, because you can see what it is, but sometimes whether it's pointing to one side of the path or to the other side of the path wasn't always clear from a bit further away. So you just have to look at them a bit closer if you don't have great eyes like I don't. So that's the only thing about it, just to know that the icons can be a little bit small, but that is the only thing that we have to say that's not like glowing praise for this game, because I really love this game and appreciate it. So from here we will go into our overview of Diverging Paths.
The Diverging Paths expansion offers 2 additional helpers which you can utilize at the start of your turn. It also includes 4 shrines, each with its own new opportunity for scoring points. You earn the benefit of each of these shrines for each tile of your path that passes adjacent to the shrine tile. The Fushimi Inara Temple offers wild tokens, which you can use in place of any other small landmark token. The Kitano Shrine offers a bidding element, with extra game points going to the winner of each bid. The Nonomiya Shrine adds a deck of goal cards. You earn extra game points for each goal that you complete. And finally, the Toji Temple provides a set of 6 helper cards with extra powers you can use in your turn. However, if you use 1 helper card, you have to use all of the helper cards that you have in front of you, and only the last 2 provide endgame scoring points. As you use them, you can re-earn them by forming paths past the Toji Temple again. As with the core game, you continue playing until all tiles are laid, then you count up your points and see who's won 100 Torii.
So Diverging Paths offers a whole great variety to the gameplay of 100 Torii. So one thing, aesthetically, it looks really lovely as you're adding those temples or shrines in there and working around them. Each module and temple is completely unique. So you now have the choice. Do you like the bidding one? Does that one work for you? Do you want to play with this one? Do you want to play with that one? Each game will be completely different based on the one you choose. And you can make it different still by combining them, by having 2 or having 3 or being super brave and trying all 4 together.
And there's something else, though. The addition in the setup of the shrines is you have 4 or 8, depending on how many shrines you're using, you have an initial set of tiles that you're using from the start tile to that starting shrine. So that gives you kind of a jumping off point. They each have some Torii gates on them, maybe not, so that you've got something there to build on.
So we're going to start talking about them each individually and give you our impressions of them.
Okay, so the Fushimi Inara Shrine is the one that adds the wild tokens.
Yeah, and that was really nice. That was really fun to play with because it brings this extra economy of abundance to the game. So, and to work that extra strategy to get around the temples more often, because obviously it's nice to get the extra wild tokens, but it's not just that. Because once you get 5 tokens in any of the icons, you score a 5-point marker, and then when you score another 5, you score the 10-point, and then those tokens are maxed out. So these wilds can help assist you in getting your other tokens to the 5 and 10 achievements, but it also has its own achievement in and of itself. Yeah, so it's nice to play with that extra abundance. So we did enjoy that one. We did find, however, playing in a 2-player game, so we played through this all 2-player, that both halfway to 3/4 of the way through, we had such an abundance that I had maxed out all my scoring tokens completely. So once you do that, there's not much else places to go. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense. 3/4 of the way, she had maxed herself out. It allowed me time to catch up. Not enough time, as it turned out, but still, I felt much better that I got much closer in the end to her massive economy over there.
It did kind of stall out the game a little bit for me, and we do think this is probably an artifact of playing it with 2 players, because there is so much more of abundance because you're not sharing the paths as much. So we have played the base game with 4 players, and you know, the base game plays really well either with 2 or 4, but it does give us insight as to how this would play a little bit differently if there were more people utilizing those resources. So even though my tokens were all maxed out, you're still able to gain those extra helper achievements, but you can only do 1 a turn, and your opponent can do 1 a turn too. So it doesn't really get you ahead at that point. It was a fun temple though.
So the next temple is the Kitano Shrine, and that's the one that adds a bidding element.
And this is a great one that if you want a more aggressive and confrontational gameplay, because you're directly bidding on those corners, it means every time you pass, you can outbid the person who's bid there before. And you might not want to. You might want to wait it out and wait towards the end and bid. This also gave a different dynamic as a 2-player game than I imagine it would be as 4, because we're in direct competition. So whoever wins each of the 4 corners gets 5 endgame scoring tokens, which is substantial, and then whoever has the most tokens in general also scores an additional 5 points.
And what happens is, what we noticed is, I bid, I might have 5 tokens on a corner, but now when Lola bids, I get those 5 tokens back. Well, if I don't use them, they're there. I can add 2 more tokens and go and outbid her, assuming that I've used that path. So the fact that these tokens are just coming back to each of us when we do this, in a 2-player game at least, kind of made it almost like a stalemate. It was a matter of who could end up being the last person to bid.
We're brutal, and yeah, so it is more confrontational because there are so many points hidden that we're able to utilize the same paths, and it was just going back and forth until towards the end I had like 20 tokens on like a corner as we're trying to hold our claim. But at the same time, it does kind of come down to whoever is the last one to go by, unless they don't have the tokens for it, is going to be able to take it.
To be fair, that was in a game where we played 2 shrines, the Fushimi Inara and the Kitano, so we had a lot of wild tokens that we could throw into those bids.
That's true. And we did play, so each of these temples we played on their own. We actually spent a lot of time playing through all the different permutations we could of this. So we did them all individually, and we did some with a couple here and there. We tried 3, and we tried to put them together in different ways. So yes, that one we did combine the 2 of those. And our first game, we did not have that issue. We definitely didn't have so many tokens on accruing it when we just played the bidding. Yeah. So that's a good one for if you want more of a confrontational game, if you want more interaction, if you want a bidding element, because that can be fun too.
Okay, so in the Nonomiya Shrine, that's the one that adds a deck of cards that offer you in-game goals to attain. It's as simple as a path of 2 tiles, or a path of 4 tiles, or a path of 8 tiles that don't pass through any gates.
This was my absolute favorite of the 4 temples because it offers so much variety. So to have these extra goals or objectives, what's nice about them is they allow you to use more of the board, open up the board, and do different things, because the crux of the game is having the longest paths, because then you're going to be passing through the most Torii gates and getting the most tokens. But with this, as Sean said, you might want to score just two tiles, or you might just want to score 1 icon. And so there's a whole variety of things that aren't going to be what would otherwise be your best move. So instead of everybody conglomerating on the best longest path and trying to milk it as best they can, you're now seeing people going off in different sides and doing different things, which does open up your tableau to new options. So this one was definitely my favorite of the 4. I really enjoyed playing it.
So why would you put a tile there? You got 1 tile. Like, oh, and that was your goals.
Yeah, so you get those like extra 3 end-game achievement points, and that's a lot. So you get them and you add them up and you add them up, and it's very satisfying and fun to play.
And lastly is the Toji Temple, and this adds a set of cards. Each player has access to 6 of them. First one is you can buy one of the larger helpers for less, and then you can use 2 helpers in a turn, and various powers going all the way up. And the last cards are worth 5 and 6 points at the end of the game.
Yeah, and this one's really interesting too. So to make it clear, you get 1 card, the next in the series, every time you pass through a tile directly orthogonally adjacent to that temple. So you get number 1 to start off with. If you pass 2 tiles, you would get then number 2. Next time you pass by, you get 3 and 4, so on and so forth, all the way up. But these are powerful cards. They're wonderful to use. To be able to do 2 helpers at once is absolute gold, because now you can pull off so much more strategy in your turn, and you get those extra points because of the first and second and third time you use them, you get endgame achievement points, 2, 4, and 3 if you're the first person to use a helper the 3rd time. So it's only for those first 2, 1, 2, and 3 times, but it gives you a lot of extra points. So to be able to milk that and maximize those points in that way, but it's still a balancing act, because you can't just use one of these cards. If you're using them, you have to give them all in. You have to use them all, and including if you've accrued the 5 and the 6, which are 5 and 6 victory points, which are quite high and nice to have, you have to surrender them all, and you have to work back up. In other words, you'd have to pass by that temple 5 and 6 times to get those victory points back. So it's the balance of using them, but now I have to get around again. And it's like, okay, but now I got to get around again to get back up to those points.
Yeah, and ideally, I mean, maybe you have a path that by utilizing those first 4 powers, you can form that path that is circling that temple, so that you've used 4, but you're also getting 1, 2, 3, 4. You're getting all 6 of them back. Isn't that great? So it doesn't happen all the time. Of course, in a 2-player game, it's a little easier to do than in a multiplayer, in more players. But
yeah. And this is another one. This is another temple that in our 2-player game, I found that about 3/4 of the way through, I'd maxed out all my token possibilities. Now, you don't gain any extra in-game scoring for accruing extra tokens beyond your 5 and 10 scoring tokens. So anything beyond that is just excess. So yeah, that happened with that one as well. But this one is a really interesting one to juggle too. So taking a look at them all, so we did combine some of them. It was a lot of fun to combine them, and there's a lot of flexibility you have there. So you can put together ones that are your favorites. You can avoid ones that don't work as well for you. I think that from our exploration of it, that I do enjoy working with them on an individual basis the best. What about you?
I kind of feel the same way.
Yeah. So that brings us to the next question. So should you get Diverging Paths if you have 100 Torii? First of all, you gotta love the game already and enjoy it to want the expansion for it. But if you do, I think that this is worth it to do a little bit more with. So 100 Torii is a game that I really love. It's a solid go-to filler game, plays about an hour, as I said at the beginning of the video, and it's just got enough strategy to make it satisfying. So it is light to medium on the scale of heaviness. But you add these extra module temples to it, it just adds that extra variety. Like if you just want to make it a little different tonight, it's like, oh, well, I feel like bidding, let's throw on that temple tonight. It's like, oh, well, let's play with the extra objective cards to add that bit of interest. I think it's fun to be able to have some flexibility in how you play it. So I do think that it is worth picking up if it sounds good to you.
Yeah, and in addition, the 2 helpers themselves are fantastic. The addition of the pilgrim with the longer tiles, each of them has a blue and a red gate on it, just increases the number of gates you can add into your path. It really adds some really great strategic elements into the game.
Yeah. So I think having those extra helpers is really fantastic, and definitely adds to the game as well. So I am happy to have it as well. If you're interested in it, go check it out. It's a fun expansion to 100 Torii. Well, thank you so much for watching with us today. We hope you enjoyed this video and got something out of it.
Check out some of our other videos.
And in the meantime, happy gaming, folks. As well, each module, and there's 4 of them, is completely unique, which makes for a whole variety of gameplay. I just said that. He's mocking me right now. You should see what I put up with.